Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here today. It's great to have such a strong turnout. This is actually the most signups that we've ever received for one of these sessions. And I think that shows that there's a real interest in how government teams are approaching communications and digital strategy. Today's session is titled A Secure Communications Platform for Government. And what we'll be focusing on are practical examples of how government agencies are managing their digital communications. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Ryan Harris, Swift Digital Solutions Director. And over the past 15 years, I've worked closely with a range of government organizations to help them plan and implement their communication strategies across emails, events, and stakeholder engagement. Today, I'm looking forward to walking you through some examples of real-world case studies from clients who use Swift every day. This won't be a product demo. It's more about how communication frameworks are being applied in real practice. I think what we're seeing across government right now is a shift away from more ad hoc style communications to structured and secure frameworks. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. I'm joined today by my colleagues Kim and T. They're helping to run this session, and they've done a lot of work with helping me to set up and run this. So I just wanted to say a big thanks to them. But also, if you have any questions as we're running through the webinar, please feel free to send it through to Kim or T. They can assist you as we go through, and we should have some time towards the end for a Q&A session. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to take you through the agenda first for today. Let me switch over to the next slide. There we go. I know a lot of you who are joining us today are existing clients. It's great to have you here. But we do also have some that are not familiar with Swift or aren't using us currently. So the first couple of slides, I'll just share a little bit more about Swift to give you a better idea of who we are as a company. We'll also talk about what's in the Swift platform, what are the different tools and solutions that Swift can provide. We'll have a look at why Swift is such an excellent choice for government and enterprise clients. Then we'll get into the case studies. I have 4 case studies to share with you today. One is with the ATO, that's Strategic Campaign Lifecycle. You may also know those as sunset campaigns. The next will be with WorkSafe Victoria, that's improving engagement through incremental data strategy. Then we'll have rapid response communications framework with Transport Victoria. And finally, with Department of Health, we'll have multi-channel escalation for internal communications. At the end of this webinar, we will have a look at new ACMA SMS legislation that's coming up. There's a deadline on the 1st of July that you need to be aware of if you send SMS communications. We'll have a little bit of chat about that, and we also have an SMS offer for you for joining us today. All right, just a little bit about Swift. If you're not familiar with us, Swift is a completely Australian-owned and operated company. We were established, excuse me, we've been around for about 25 years now. And we have local staff. I myself am based in Melbourne, but a lot of our team are based up in Sydney. Swift is government accredited at all levels of government and also ISO 27001 certified. That will really help with receiving IT approval and also procurement. Swift provides assurance of data security and sovereignty. It's one of our top priorities. All of our data is stored in Australia, specifically in Sydney. You never need to worry about your data going overseas. And you will always maintain ownership of your data. Even if you were to ever leave Swift, it's your data to take with you. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's in the Swift platform. Swift is known for an all-in-one marketing and events platform. So it has tools for email marketing, event management, landing pages, online surveys, SMS marketing, and marketing automation. So if you consider for a moment all the various tools that you currently use for these solutions, and then imagine if you're able to package those all up into one platform, that's what you get with Swift. It's one platform, one database, and really everything you need in one location. This platform is the foundation for everything that I'll be showing you later on in the case studies that we go through. Next, let's have a quick just discussion on why Swift is such a popular choice for government and enterprise clients in Australia. Rather than going through each of these one by one, I think I'll just touch on the main three reasons that clients would go with us. And of course, first is security and compliance. We offer Australian data hosting, ISO certification. We're designed for government environments. And these usually are the baseline requirements for government and enterprise organizations. Second would be consolidation and control. So because the platform includes everything from email, events, surveys, and SMS, it reduces your tool sprawl and really centralizes your communications. And this is where we start to see real efficiencies with your operating teams. And just on a last point, I would say flexibility. Swift works for any team. We can be a small team as little as 3 users, or some clients will have 50 plus users. It's very scalable no matter how large your organization or needs. We also offer role-based access controls and ways that you can partition. If you have multiple business areas, you can partition them from one another so that they only have access to the things they need access to. Swift also integrates with a variety of different tools and platforms. We have APIs that you can use to integrate with CRMs or other external data sources. And then lastly, I would just say that we support different communication use cases and especially custom solutions. You'll see some of those custom solutions in the case studies that we go through. A lot of platforms, you get what you get, but with Swift, we will really take and expand upon the existing solution that we have to provide custom solutions if they're needed. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the first case study, and that is strategic campaign lifecycle or sunset campaigns with the ATO. So the scenario here is someone like the ATO has a very large database that grows over time, but that also means that inactive subscribers are growing over time. So eventually you get to a point where you have a large percentage of inactive or disengaged subscribers, and there's a few challenges that come with that. One is it impacts your deliverability by having so many inactive contacts. It harms your engagement performance, and it can affect your communication effectiveness. The challenges that you would meet by having so many inactive contacts would be reduced deliverability, increased risk of spam complaints, and of course, ongoing costs associated with inactive contacts. You don't necessarily want to be paying for contacts that aren't interacting with you. I think the key message with this case study is going to be to show you how to improve engagement and deliverability through structured audience management. But let's have a look at what sunset campaigns look like. You may start receiving these. Actually, a lot of organizations are sending them more and more to try and keep their lists clean and healthy. But these are examples of sunset campaigns. We have Parks Victoria, ATO, and WorkSafe Victoria. The goal here is to notify subscribers that they are inactive and ask them if they'd like to remain subscribed. Get them to opt back into receiving your communications. There's different ways of approaching this, but you want to provide a clear call to action, as you can see in these examples, and also inform subscribers what will happen if they don't take action. You can see two of the examples here. It shows if you don't click to resubscribe, you will be removed from the mailing lists. In the case of ATO, we help them set up and run this sunset campaign. And theirs is quite unique because they offer so many different types of newsletters, and someone might be inactive across several different types of communications. They might only want to re-engage or opt back into a specific communication. So let's say that I wanted to just remain subscribed to Super News. I could click to confirm my subscription to Super News, but then I would still be unsubscribed from Business Bulletins and Tax Professionals newsletter. So that's an interesting approach. If you do offer multiple communication options, you might want to consider whether this would work well for you, providing choice and options to your users. All right, let's look at how sunset campaigns actually work. I'll take you through the process that you'd need to plan if you did want to implement one. So the first step is to define and identify your inactive subscribers. This varies depending on your industry. For government, we tend to say identify contacts across the last 12 months who haven't engaged with you. If you're in retail, that would be much shorter. Sometimes retail will even be doing sunset campaigns every quarter or every 2 months. But you want to choose what time frame you're going to use to identify your inactive contacts, and then measure that to find those contacts. You'll then want to determine your campaign length. So how many opportunities are you going to give your contacts a chance to opt back in? Usually you want to do 2 to 3 communications. I would say just offer 2. These communications are to inactive contacts. You don't get a lot of engagement as it is. So 2 usually provides more than enough opportunity for them to re-engage with you. Then you'll move on to sending your first reactivation email. So you find your inactive contacts, send the first reactivation email to them. Anyone who does reactivate from that first email, you want to be sure that you remove them from any subsequent sends in this campaign. In Swift, we have an automatic way that the system handles that for you. But if you're manually doing this, you just need to be sure that you add conditions or suppress groups to make sure that follow-up comms aren't being sent to people who've already reactivated. Next, you will complete sending your reactivation emails. Another thing that I ask clients to consider is, what do you consider a reactivation? Is it just them clicking on a link in the email that is considered reactivated, or do you want to send them to a form that they must submit to count their reactivation? There's different benefits to both. Some of you may be familiar that some email recipients, their spam filters will go through and click every link. So if you have a case of that, or a lot of your subscribers have bots going through and clicking links just to check for safety, then that might be counting as a reactivation, even though the person may not want to reactivate. So a form submission is a more surefire way to make sure that that person actually does want to reactivate, but you likely will get less reactivations by using the form method. And then finally, after you've sent all your campaigns, you want to identify the remaining contacts who have not reactivated. Those are your sunset contacts. Those are the contacts that you then take and bulk unsubscribe from your communications platform. You do always want to provide an option for them to resubscribe down the road if they choose, but we tend to take that group and then we'll do a bulk unsubscribe. So you can see with this framework, it's actually kind of a simple way to look at it would be, you identify your inactive contacts, you try to re-engage them, and then you remove them from your lists. It needs to be a controlled and easily repeatable campaign that you run. You want to repeat these about every 2 to 3 years, I would suggest. Let's talk about some of the benefits that you get from running sunset campaigns. So one is list cleansing and removal of spam traps. You're keeping your lists healthy and active. It helps to improve your email deliverability. 1, it reduces spam complaints, and 2, it lowers your bounce rates. The thought behind that is, because you're clearing your inactive contacts out before they have a chance to report you as spam or before their email addresses bounce. So that keeps your engagement rates a lot higher. It will also improve your engagement metrics. We'll have a look at that on the next slide. And then the third benefit, of course, is you're removing recycled spam traps from your mailing lists. For those of you who aren't familiar with spam traps, I'll take just a minute to explain how that works. So imagine that you're sending to an email address. Let's say it's a Yahoo email address, because Yahoo has a history of using these spam traps. Yahoo will take the email address of someone who maybe they used to be a legitimate subscriber, but that person or that email address has been inactive for, let's say, 3 or 4 years. So they convert that into a spam trap. They know that that person or that email address has not been logged into in, say, 3 years. So they say, no one should now be sending to this email address. It's an inactive email. So they'll then watch to see who's still sending emails to that email address. That's how you can easily end up with a spam trap on your mailing list due to no fault of your own. It's just that email address has gone inactive and is now technically a spam trap. So when you send to that email address, Yahoo says you shouldn't be sending to this. And then that can affect your deliverability to other Yahoo email addresses. That's something that they factor in to their deliverability algorithms. So this is just another very important reason why you should be running sunset campaigns or cleansing your lists at least every few years. All right, the next benefit that you get from running sunset campaigns, and I like this one a lot, it's very easy to understand, but that is it will boost your engagement statistics or your open rates. So just as an example, let's say that before we run a sunset campaign, we have 10,000 subscribers, and of the 10,000, 3,000 are engaged in opening the communications. So that, of course, is a 30% open rate, but a lot of those might be inactive subscribers. So we want to run a sunset campaign to try and remove those subscribers from the list of 10,000. So let's say that we run our sunset campaign, and at the end of the campaign, we do identify that there were 2,000 inactive subscribers. So we've sunsetted them. We've removed them from receiving future communications. So that takes our overall subscriber number from 10,000 down to 8,000. But our active contacts is still the same. We still have 3,000 engaged contacts who are opening our communications, but we're now comparing that 3,000 against the 8,000 that we send to. So that makes your overall open rate almost 40%. You're getting a 37.5% open rate all of a sudden by removing those inactive subscribers. So you can see this is a very easy way to improve or boost your open rates by running a sunset campaign and cleansing your lists. The next benefit I wanted to talk about, and this is one that clients love a lot, is it will help you to save on long running and overall costs. So usually with sunset campaigns, we tend to find over a 12-month process, if it's the first time you're running a sunset campaign, you might find 10 to 30%, potentially even more of your list that are inactive or not engaged with you. When you send your sunset campaigns, of the 10 to 30%, only 1 to 4%, and usually we see that more towards the 1 or 1.5%, only they will actually reactivate. So it's a very small number that end up reactivating due to your sunset campaigns. But that means that your overall sunset contacts that you remove from your subscription lists would be anywhere from 6 to 29% of your list. That can be scary to think about, but you also need to consider that these contacts aren't engaging with you. They haven't opened an email in over a year and might not be likely that they do anytime soon. So that would translate into real savings on either your contact or publishing costs. So just another thing to consider is by running a sunset campaign, you could save a significant amount on your overall costs. All right, let's talk about the outcomes that you see from running sunset campaigns, and that is improved deliverability and sender reputation, increased engagement rates across your audiences, reduction in spam complaints and bounce rates, clear identification and removal of inactive contacts, and of course, the cost savings. This is built for government because we can support large and complex contact databases, just as we did with the ATO. It enables structured communication processes that you plan and that you can repeat over and over. And it aligns with compliance and also Australian legislation. It's scalable across departments and communications. Just in the ATO example, where you're giving the recipient options to choose what they want to opt into, you could do the same by business area. If you have different business units, you could do sunset campaigns by business unit as well. So overall, I think by running sunset campaigns, you get better deliverability, you get cost savings, and there's reduced risk by sending to inactive contacts. This framework really shifts your communications from high volume to high quality. Okay, the next case study that we're going to go through is improving engagement through incremental data strategy with WorkSafe Victoria. The scenario here, and this is something that a lot of agencies struggle with, is you just don't have the data to support tailored communication for personalization. So maybe the data that you have just is email address and maybe first name if you're lucky. Other clients will have more data, and the more data that you have, the more you're able to tailor your communications. So the goal should be more tailored and targeted communications that are relevant to your readers. The challenges by having a database that doesn't offer much in way of data is you get incomplete and outdated contact data. you have to use like a one-size-fits-all or more generic communication strategy. You end up with low engagement just because maybe content isn't relevant to your audience. Your subscription forms might be very lengthy, which can cause a lot of drop-off. And it also gives you limited availability to segment. The key message with this case study is to show how to build richer audience insight to deliver more relevant communications. So let's have a look at how this works and how we built this for WorkSafe Victoria. So you can see here, we've built a subscription center for WorkSafe Victoria. If you go and subscribe to their communications now, this is what you would see. But the subscription form itself captures just a few details: first name, last name, email, and postcode. That's the bare information that we needed up front. And then below that, you'll have your subscription options that you can choose what you'd like to opt into. After submitting this form as a new subscriber, you'll then immediately receive a welcome email. Welcome emails always get the most engagement or the highest engagement out of your communication strategy. So this is a great place to try and capture more attention or more information from your new subscribers. So you can see in this particular welcome email, it's welcoming them to the newsletters and also asking them to provide more information about themselves so that the information that they see can be tailored to them. So if you click the Update Details button, that will take you back through to the Subscription Center. You can see that here. We've hit the Manage Preferences page now. But in this case, comparing this to the form over on the left, you can see we're capturing a few new data fields now. So we're now getting mobile number, age, gender, and then an entire new section on workplace information. The other benefit here is the information that's captured here can be used across multiple business areas or teams. So the industry data field would be a really useful field to lots of different teams that publish newsletters within Swift. They could use that information to tailor the content that their recipients see. But that's an example of how you might capture data over time instead of all up front. You're kind of building your data quality over time across multiple touch points. All right, let's look at some results that you might see by using incremental data strategy. So first, on the subscription form, by reducing the amount of questions up front, you reduce your drop-off. More people are likely to submit the form in the first place. So that's something to consider is, are your subscription forms too long? Are you asking too much information up front? Just try simply A/B testing it to see if reducing the number of fields up front results in more subscribers actually submitting the form. Welcome email engagement, 62%. I mentioned welcome emails always get the highest engagement. So it's a great opportunity to try and capture more data at that point. And overall, contacts with updated profiles reached 70%. That's not only from the welcome email, that's also from multiple touch points, from future newsletters that contacts receive or other communications. There's always an option within communications for them to click through and update or provide more information to receive more tailored communications. Some of the outcomes that you'll find by implementing this framework would be increased engagement through more relevant communications, higher conversion rates across your campaigns, gradual enrichment of contact profiles over time. That allows you to do a lot more with future communications as well. Reduce form fatigue, and that improves your user experience. And you're able to segment a lot better than you may have been able to previously. And why this is built for government, it allows you to capture data progressively without overwhelming your users. It supports privacy-conscious data collection practices. People are able to provide just the bare information upfront, and then they can choose what additional information they want to provide later on. It enables more effective stakeholder engagement and works across multiple communication touchpoints or business areas. And of course, builds a more sustainable long-term data strategy. In the future, you have this data available to you. If you implement or introduce new communications, you might be able to use that data to create better audience segments. All right. Let's go ahead and move to the next case study now, and that is with Transport Victoria, Rapid Response Communications Framework. So the scenario here is all across the state in Victoria, when a road incident occurs, they need to be able to quickly and effectively communicate to transport operators, stakeholders, and local authorities. Prior to coming to Swift, the challenges that they had were that manual email process caused delays. Also, a high stress environment if you're always having to manually issue updates, new incident alerts. You could imagine the administrative overhead with that. And if multiple incidents happen at the same time, that can also cause further delays. Also, there was no ability to target alert types by location or type, so it was more generic information that was just being sent out to everyone on the lists. The key message with this case study is that if you have time-sensitive communications, they really can't rely on manual processes. So what we did for Transport Victoria is we implemented an API-driven solution. And the way that this works is when an incident is entered into their incident management system, that immediately posts that information over to Swift. We pick that up and then we use that information to generate an email alert like you see here on screen. So the emails get instantly generated and triggered out to the relevant subscribers. And the way that we target subscribers is when they sign up, they can choose from 3 different categories what type of communications or alerts they need to receive. So they can specify by incident type, by impact type, and by geographic location. And then finally, the last step was they needed to be able to invite new stakeholders to subscribe to receive these kind of alerts, but it needed to be an invitation-only process. So we set up an invitation form for them, and we've protected this behind a single sign-on environment. So only authorized, authenticated users would be able to invite new subscribers to sign up to receive these incident alerts. And I guess the key here is that this is fully automated. There's no manual intervention required. It just runs on a daily basis and doesn't need any human involvement. And I wanted to show just an example of what these alerts are like. And for those of you who live in Victoria, you may be very familiar with this bridge. This is the Montague Street Bridge, also known colloquially as the Monty. This is a tram bridge that connects South Melbourne to Port Melbourne. And you can see here on a regular basis, it eats trucks for lunch. There's a whole website devoted to this bridge. You can check how many days it's been since the bridge has had an incident, and you can view photos of all of the trucks that have hit the bridge. It's quite interesting to look at. But you can imagine when these bridge strikes occur, it creates traffic chaos around the area. And this information needs to be sent out quickly and effectively to local authorities and stakeholders in the area. So when an incident is entered into their incident management system, it will create an email record like this, and this gets immediately distributed out. But also over time, they're updating. So as regular updates are made available, those updates also get passed into Swift. We use that information to generate an email, and then we publish out updates. And then finally would be a resolution email. So once the incident has been resolved, that information gets posted into Swift as well, and we'll send a final email notifying stakeholders that the road has been cleared. So you can imagine across the state, there are potentially hundreds of incidents occurring every single day. Different stakeholders need to be notified of different incidents. So each day there's hundreds of different emails that are going out from the Swift platform to notify and keep these stakeholders updated. It's a great example of where communications are genuinely time critical. Let's talk just a little bit about reporting. Although this is a custom framework that we built for Transport Victoria, because the framework is built upon the Swift platform itself, it comes with everything that you already have. So for you existing subscribers or clients, you're very familiar with this screenshot. This is a screenshot of our reporting area. So every email that's sent out through this incident system gets the same reporting availability that you would have if you're sending a newsletter or just an ad hoc EDM. You can check any email to make sure that it was delivered okay, that it didn't bounce, and to see if the emails were opened or engaged with. So you're not, in this case, you're not just sending communications, you really have full visibility into who's receiving them and if they're engaging. The outcomes that Transport Victoria found were real-time notifications delivered within seconds. That was one of their key objectives. It completely eliminated manual workloads, didn't rely on anyone creating and sending emails manually. That alone reduces human error and improves accuracy and reliability. You get increased stakeholder engagement, again, because people are receiving alerts that are actually relevant to them, not more generic alerts across the board. And the reasons that this is built for government is it enables time-critical communications at scale, reduces operational risk, that's always a big one, ensures consistent and accurate messaging, and provides a future-proof, scalable framework. So no matter what the future brings or what incidents occur, these communications will continue to go out on a daily basis. This shifts communications from reactive to real-time and structured. Okay, moving on to the last case study I wanted to share with you, and that is multi-channel escalation for internal communications. The Swift platform is used by clients for both internal and external needs, and I'll talk during this case study a little bit more about how we handle internal comms, because the way Swift handles them is quite unique to other vendors. But the scenario here, and this is something if you're involved with internal comms that you are very familiar with, is that you have an internal memo that needs to go out to all staff. All staff need to be aware of that. So that could be a policy update, a security or IT advisory, or operational changes. Challenges with sending just emails to internal staff is that not all staff open emails in time or even at all. And there's no structured follow-up if they don't engage with you. And this inevitably means that some critical messages don't end up reaching all staff. So the key message with this case study is to show that email alone is not always sufficient for your internal communications. And this is probably one of the largest gaps that we see with government is for internal comms relying only on email communications. It's not always the best or right option. So let's look at how this framework works, where you have email and SMS working together. It's a simple framework, and we see different clients using a similar variation of this and it working really well. So let's say, as a first example, we have the internal update email that we need to send to all staff, just notifying that there's a new policy that they need to view and be aware of. After this first email is sent, we then 2 days later want to send a reminder email to anyone who didn't open the first email. So this would be sent to non-openers of that first email, and it automatically goes 2 days later. 2 days later. And then third is we want to do a third and final reminder 1 day after that reminder email sent to the remaining non-openers. And not only do we want to send an email communication, but at this point we want to escalate it to send an SMS communication as well. So you can see an example of that here. It's just an SMS that lets the recipient know that they've received an email in their inbox and they need to view that email because it's very important to the organization. And then the final step here is just to identify all remaining contacts who didn't end up opening or engaging with the email. It means they haven't seen the policy. You may want to take those internal staff and maybe do a manual follow-up with them. But you want that in an easily identifiable format. So this process, once you've set it up, is fully automated. I'll walk you through that in the next slide. It's very targeted. You're not over-communicating. Again, anyone who does actually engage and open the email and view the new policy, they're removed from receiving any subsequent sends, and it provides multi-channel coverage through email and SMS. Okay, let's look at how something like this might be set up in Swift using our campaign builder tool. The campaign builder tool allows you to create what you see on screen here. It's really kind of a multi-pronged user journey that people would go through. And at different parts in the journey, we're triggering different communications, whether they're email communications or SMS communications. So what I want to share here is on the very first, what you're looking at here, this very first box, this is the first email notice that we're sending out. And you can see we set up a trigger here. So when this notice is sent, then 2 days later, we want to send a follow-up email communication. And the way that that gets scheduled in Campaign Builder is by setting up that trigger. So you can see here, we want to trigger this to recipients who didn't open the initial communication, and we want it to fire 2 days after. You can see down below, you can choose to send the trigger via email or SMS, but you would enter your publishing details and click confirm. That then creates the trigger that you would drag to the next asset that gets fired in this campaign. In this case, it's a reminder email. So this reminder email gets sent 2 days after the initial email to anyone who didn't open the first email. Then on this reminder email, we have 2 triggers. You can see both of those here. These are also unopened triggers. So if this reminder email goes unopened for 1 day, we're going to send 1 follow-up reminder email and 1 follow-up reminder SMS. You can see that a bit larger on screen now, but you'd set up those 2 different triggers that perform different actions. And then, just to show you what that looks like, it is a little different than setting up an email trigger. I'm showing you the SMS trigger in this instance. So we're triggering to recipients who haven't opened the reminder email 1 day later, and we want to send an SMS. So we create that trigger, and once we've created that trigger, we then drag that down to this SMS that you can see here. So that would fire the SMS to anyone who doesn't open this email within 1 day. And then not to forget the very last step, that is we want to find a final list of anyone who didn't view the policy across the entire campaign. So after that final reminder email is sent, anyone who still hasn't opened the email 2 days later, make a list of those contacts and store it in the database. And the way that that's set up in Campaign Builder is when you're setting up your trigger option, you would choose to trigger to a mail group. So we're adding people who reach that point in the journey to a mail group. And we want that to be taken into account 2 days later. And you can see we've selected the unopened contacts mail group here. That will drop people into the Swift database into a group that you can then take and export and do your manual follow-ups with. So I think this campaign process shows that it provides high visibility for critical communications, information that you absolutely have to get out to staff. SMS in this instance is used as an escalation. It's not the primary channel of communication, and it's used only when email engagement fails. So it's really not a replacement of email, but it kind of complements your email communications. I hope that flow makes sense. I know there's a lot of different touch points in there. Let's go through some of the outcomes that you'll find by running this sort of framework, and that's improved reach of your internal communications, absolutely. Increased staff awareness overall, reduced manual follow-ups by including so many touch points through your campaign process. You're much more likely to reach a larger portion of your staff up front. Greater confidence that your messages are received. And this is built for government. One reason is with Swift, we take a different approach than a lot of other email vendors when it comes to internal communications. And that's how we handle unsubscribes for internal comms. The Australian Spam Act carves out an exception for you when you're communicating with internal staff. You're allowed to communicate with them without providing an option for them to unsubscribe. A lot of platforms just take across the board approach. They require you and force you to have an unsubscribe link, even if it's for internal comms. With Swift, we will custom build internal templates for you that remove that unsubscribe link. So that prevents your internal staff from unsubscribing from receiving your internal communications. We have recently just begun going through the process of setting up ACMA compliant sender IDs. That's something we'll talk about a little bit more on the following slide. but it's something to be aware of. On July 1st, there is a new policy coming into place that any SMS sender IDs that you want to send from need to be registered with ACMA and with your telco provider. Swift is one of those telco providers, and we can assist you with that ACMA registration process. Of course, you get Australian hosted data, whether it's your email data or your SMS data. It's all housed and hosted in Australia. So this sort of framework really gives organizations like Department of Health confidence that critical messages are being received, reaching staff, and that staff are seeing and engaging with them. All right, give me just 1 second while I move to the next slide. Just got to switch that up. Not sure if that switched. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to leave you with one final takeaway, and that's that we're starting to see more and more government teams start to introduce SMS not as a replacement to email, but more as a controlled escalation channel for important communications. Just as we saw in that last example for internal comms, that's a really simple way that you can implement this in practice. So to assist you with this, we are offering we're providing an offer to you of 50 free SMS credits that will allow you to publish SMS communications through the Swift platform immediately. We'll also offer free sender ID registration that is compliant with ACMA and provide guidance on how to set that up and also what strategies you can implement for your SMS communications. This is available whether you're already using Swift or if you're completely new to Swift. It's available to everyone, and there's no obligation here. It's just a really easy way for you to get started and start testing SMS in real-world scenarios. So you can scan the QR code here, go and fill out a little form. We'll be in touch soon after to provide you with more information. You can also type in that link. We'll be sending these slides later on, so you'll have clickable links that you can use as well. But yeah, if you're interested, this would be a really simple way for you to introduce SMS into your communications, both safely and compliantly. All right. That really covers everything that I wanted to share today. Thanks again so much for taking the time to join us. Everyone here at Swift really appreciates it. Hopefully what you've seen today is how these communication frameworks are being applied in practice across real government agencies. If you are new to Swift and you'd like to explore Swift a little bit more and see how these sort of things can apply to your agency, feel free to scan the QR code here to book in a demo or reach out to us directly. A demo would just be a short, about a 40-minute session to take you through a tailored walkthrough, show you the Swift platform in depth, and I'm also happy to map that to your own internal environments. So I think we'll go ahead and see if there are any questions that have come up. Let me switch to a different screen. Okay. We do have a few questions. I'll go ahead and read some of those off now. The first one is, how does SMS sender ID registration work? It's a really good question, and it's something that everyone's kind of scrambling around with lately because that deadline's coming up soon. We'll help guide you through that process. There's essentially two parts of registration that need to occur. One is that you need to find someone who's an authorized contact within your organization to create what's called an ACMA Assist account. That's the first part. But then you also need to register with Swift and assign Swift as your originating telco. We'll assist you through that process and help to answer any questions that you have. You'll all be guided through that. All right, next question is, let's see, do you have a list of government approvals at all three levels? So when it comes to government accreditation, we at the federal level, we're on the by ICT register. So a lot of clients will tend to go and procure Swift as a platform through that. So at the federal level, I direct you to that. At the state level, we're on different services, whether that's by New South Wales, we're an approved vendor on there, or e-services in Victoria. Also, sometimes clients will just come to us directly and procure just a direct relationship or direct agreement with us. All right. Next is a question about spam traps. Is there any way to get spam traps removed? That is, if you're not able to run sunset campaigns for one reason or another, that can be really tricky. The whole idea behind spam traps is that you don't know which email addresses they are. In the Yahoo example that I gave earlier, they don't want email senders to know which email addresses are spam traps, because then that would defeat the purpose of them kind of making it more covert. So unfortunately, no vendor can tell you what email addresses are spam traps. Spam traps aren't treated as bounces. We don't get any bounce messages back. It just counts as a delivery, and there's no message sent back to us or to any email vendor for that matter. So without running sunset campaigns or list cleansing activities, it can be really hard to remove any spam trap email addresses from your lists. All right, and the last question is concerning open rates, and that's how open rates are tracked. So I'll just share a little bit about how email vendors like Swift calculate open rates. In order to count an open, one of two things need to occur. The first is when someone views an email, they need to have downloaded the images, or they need to click a link on the email. By downloading the images, those images are being pulled from our data servers, so we're able to track specifically which recipient downloaded images. Or if they click a link, each link is unique to the recipient as well, so we can also track that they've clicked a link. That means they've opened the email. So that's how emails opens are tracked. The question was specific, though, on if it counts in the Outlook preview panel. I can say if the Outlook preview panel opens and the images download, then that would count as images being downloaded from our server. That would count as an open. If images haven't yet downloaded, then we wouldn't be able to count that as an open. Sometimes that comes up, especially for internal comms, where you might want to have more accurate data over your opens. So what we can work with your IT team on is to have images automatically download in Outlook so that we're able to more accurately count opens for you. But that's something that your account manager can talk about further with you. All right, I think that covers all the questions. So thanks again, everyone. We really appreciate the questions and the discussion. If anything comes to mind afterwards that you forgot to ask, please feel free to get in touch. We're always happy to continue the conversation with you. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the day, and we hope to see you again at another webinar like this in the future. Thank you so much.